Usually, when we talk about our careers or even, our lives as a whole, there's this weird expectation of precision. Like, you're handed a GPS navigation system right at graduation,
Right, yeah.
and you just punch in a destination, say senior vice president or happily married with 2 kids, and you just expect turn-by-turn
Yeah,
directions.
you're supposed to just follow the blue line, right? You're either making progress on the route or you've missed a turn and
Well,
basically failed.
exactly. And if you take a wrong turn, that metaphorical GPS starts yelling, recalculating, and you just feel this like overwhelming sense of
Total,
panic.
total panic.
But the reality of the modern world is that the GPS machine is completely broken. I mean, there is no map anymore. We are looking at this landscape of endless choices, shifting industries, and just an unprecedented level of career paralysis.
Absolutely.
So today, in this Better Every page on YouTube, we are sorting through a really revolutionary approach to that exact uncertainty. And we actually have a challenge for you to consider as we get started.
Which is a great challenge, by the way.
Yeah, what if you stopped waiting for the perfect career map to arrive and instead started treating your life like an exciting design project? Okay, let's unpack this.
So the foundation of our deep dive today is a book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans.
Uh-huh.
And to really grasp why this framework is so critical, we kind of have to look at the context of its release back in 2016.
Right, which feels like a lifetime ago now.
It really does. We were deep into this period of rapid technological shifts. The gig economy was just exploding, and that traditional linear career path was disintegrating.
Yeah, the whole working for the same company for 40 years to get a gold watch thing.
Exactly. That became an artifact of the past. People were desperate for a new toolkit because the old one just, well, it no longer applied to the economy they actually lived in.
And the guys handing us this new toolkit, they aren't your typical, self-help motivators on a stage somewhere.
No, not at all.
They're both esteemed professors at Stanford University, but their roots are in high-level innovation. Like Bill Burnett brings serious product design experience from his leadership roles at Apple.
Which is huge.
Right. And Dave Evans brings an entrepreneurial engineering perspective from co-founding Electronic Arts. So they took the rigorous principles they used to design brilliant software and physical products, and they essentially ported that code over to human flourishing.
Yeah, and the core thesis of their methodology is applying what they call design thinking to personal development.
Which is a bit of a buzzword, but it means something very specific here.
It does. Design thinking is fundamentally nonlinear. It's a methodology used by architects, software engineers, industrial designers. It's all about ideating, prototyping, and iterating.
Iterating being the key word, I think.
Exactly. Because in product design, you never assume your first idea is the perfect final product. You build a messy version, you test it in the real world, you gather data, and you improve it. Burnett and Evans argue that human lives should be treated with that exact same experimental flexibility.
It makes a lot of sense conceptually, but practically, I mean, you can't just throw your whole life in the trash and start from scratch like a crumpled piece of paper.
Right, yeah.
You have a mortgage, you have responsibilities.
Which is why the foundational step in their framework is to simply start where you are. They introduced this tool called the Life Dashboard.
Oh, I really like this part.
Yeah, think of the literal dashboard in a car. It gives you gauges on your fuel, your engine temperature, your speed. The Life Dashboard asks you to honestly assess 4 key gauges in your life:
Yeah.
health, work, play, and love.
And I think we really need to wring the insight out of that car metaphor, because if your car dashboard says your engine is overheating, let's say your health and play gauges are completely empty. Stepping harder on the gas pedal is just going to destroy the engine.
Oh, totally.
But in our careers, when we feel out of balance, our instinct is usually to just, work harder to get over the hump. We completely ignore the flashing red lights on the dashboard.
We do. And it leads straight to systemic breakdown or burnout. I mean, if your work gauge is totally full, but your health and play gauges are flashing red, you cannot design a sustainable path forward.
You just can't.
You have to honestly evaluate your current satisfaction in all 4 areas before you can even think about where to go next. And once you have that honest assessment of your current location, you have to build a compass.
See, I get stuck on the compass part. Let's say I write down my values and figure out what matters to me. Shouldn't the path forward suddenly become completely clear? Like, why do people still hit massive walls even when they feel like their compass is working?
Well, because a compass only gives you direction. It doesn't give you a paved road.
Ah, right.
You still have to bushwhack through the jungle, Building this compass involves aligning what they call your work view, which is your philosophy on why you work, and what work means to you with your life view, which encompasses your broader beliefs about the world and what gives your life meaning.
Okay, so matching the two up.
Exactly. When those two views clash, you experience severe cognitive dissonance. If your work view is about climbing a corporate ladder at all costs, but your life view deeply values, say, community and family presence, the friction between those two will eventually paralyze you.
That makes so much sense.
Aligning them ensures your true north is dictated by your own values, not external societal pressures.
But even with a calibrated compass, we hit obstacles, right? And feeling stuck is arguably the most universal career experience. I'm fascinated by how the authors tackle this, specifically with a tool called reframing.
Oh, reframing is essential.
It sounds simple, like looking at the same picture but putting a different border around it, but it actually requires shifting your fundamental perspective on the obstacle itself.
What's fascinating here is that it requires recognizing when you're trying to solve the wrong problem entirely. A prime example in the source material is what they call gravity problem.
Oh, I love this concept.
Yeah, a gravity problem is an immovable fact of life.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to be a poet, but your problem is that poets generally don't make $200,000 a year right out of college.
Right.
You can fight that reality, you can complain about it, but you cannot change it. It's literally like fighting gravity. Reframing forces you to accept the gravity and shift the problem to something actionable.
Right. So instead of how do I make a fortune as a poet, what does the reframe look like?
The reframe becomes, how do I make a sustainable living that allows me ample free time to write poetry?
I see. You stop fighting the laws of physics and start designing a life around them. And coupled with that is mind mapping, which is a visual tool where you literally draw out connections between completely disparate interests.
Yeah, it's a great exercise.
Say you love outdoor recreation, but your professional skills are all in data analysis. Your brain defaults to thinking those are separate worlds. But mind mapping forces your brain to bridge them, maybe identifying a path in supply chain logistics for an outdoor gear company. It breaks the anchor of standard job titles.
And this breaks us out of the trap of treating our lives like a finished novel that we have to write perfectly on the first draft.
Yes, it sounds like we need to stop treating our lives like a finished novel that we have to write perfectly on the first draft and start treating it like software in beta testing, always updating, always gathering feedback. You release version 1.0, it's a little buggy, maybe the interface is clunky, but it is out there functioning.
Exactly.
You are always gathering feedback from the users, which in this case is just you, and you patch the bugs in version 1.1.
Keeping with that beta software idea, to successfully iterate, you have to develop what Burnett and Evans call failure immunity. And this is achieved through prototyping.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I think a lot of people hear prototype your life and their brain immediately translates that to taking massive, reckless risks. Like they think prototyping means selling everything and moving to an alpaca farm.
The methodology advocates for the exact opposite, actually. In design thinking, you employ a bias to action, but strictly through small, low-risk experiments.
So no alpaca farms.
No alpaca farms. Because when you risk a massive life change, like quitting your corporate job, taking out a second mortgage, and signing a 10-year commercial lease to open a bakery, your brain's amygdala treats any setback as an existential threat. You are in a constant state of fight or flight.
Which is exhausting.
Right. That isn't a prototype. That is a massive gamble.
So a prototype is like waking up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday, baking a dozen scones, and seeing if the local coffee shop will let you sell them.
Yes. And consider the psychological mechanism at play there. If nobody buys the scones, or if you realize you absolutely hate waking up in the dark to bake, you haven't ruined your financial future. Because the stakes are just $20 in a Saturday morning, your brain stays in learning mode.
Wow, yeah.
You literally bypass your own fight or flight response.
A burnt scone is vital data. A bankrupt bakery is trauma.
Exactly. That is how failure immunity is built. A failed prototype isn't a reflection of your inherent worth or your destiny. It is simply information that informs your next iteration. You learn what drains you, which is just as valuable as learning what fulfills you.
That concept of destiny actually brings up one of the deepest philosophical themes in these sources, because society really hammers home this toxic narrative that everyone has one true passion or a single predetermined destiny, and if you haven't found it by age 25, you're just fundamentally lost.
Yeah, and Burnett and Evans actively dismantle that myth. The search for the one right path creates immense anxiety and analysis paralysis. The liberating truth presented in design thinking is that you contain multitudes.
I love that phrase.
It's true, though. You could live several completely different yet equally fulfilling lives. By rejecting the destiny narrative, you embrace uncertainty not as a terrifying void, but as a space of boundless possibility.
It completely changes the conversation around work-life balance, too. We always hear that term used like a seesaw. If work goes up, life goes down. It's a zero-sum game. But the sources shift this to work-life integration.
Right,
The
integration.
goal isn't to perfectly balance opposing forces, but to integrate your work, play, love, and health so they feed into each other holistically.
It creates a mutually supported system rather than a constant tug of war.
But wait, doesn't the word designing imply we have total control? Life throws massive curveballs, illnesses, market crashes that no design can predict. Isn't this a bit overly optimistic? Like, we aren't just sketching nicely on a blank whiteboard. Sometimes the whiteboard is actively catching on fire.
That is such a fair point, and the ambiguity of control is actually a recognized tension within the source text. Design thinking isn't about rigid predictive control, it is fundamentally about agility. If we connect this to the bigger picture, if you compare this framework to traditional prescriptive self-help books that offer a rigid 10-step blueprint to success, those blueprints become utterly useless the moment the whiteboard catches fire.
Right, because step 4 didn't account for a global pandemic.
Exactly. Designing your life operates much closer to the philosophy found in Eric Ries's business book, The Lean Startup, but applied to human flourishing.
So it's about building a system that absorbs the shock. The design isn't a protective bubble against tragedy. It's the shock absorbers on your car.
Beautifully put. The curveball isn't a failure of your design. The curveball is simply new data that forces a new prototype. Because your identity isn't anchored to one single destiny, a sudden layoff doesn't destroy your sense of self. It just prompts you to ask, okay, what is the next iteration? It gives you the flexibility to pivot.
Let's bring this down to earth for a second. If the philosophy is about agility and iteration, what do these tools actually look like on a random Tuesday when you're sitting at your desk, completely unfulfilled, trying to figure out your next move?
The most practical starting point is a daily practice they call the Good Time Journal. We talked earlier about knowing where you are on the life dashboard, right? Well, the Good Time Journal is how you gather the granular data to figure that out.
How does it work?
It involves tracking your daily activities to identify hidden patterns, specifically noting two distinct metrics, your engagement level and your energy level.
The distinction between engagement and energy is huge. I know from my own experience, I can be highly engaged in a heated debate or a dense strategic meeting. Like, I am fully present, my brain is firing, but when I leave that room, I am completely depleted. I need a nap.
Right, the energy's gone.
Conversely, I can spend 3 hours researching a bizarre historical event or editing audio, and I'll completely forget to eat. I emerge energized.
And you're describing a state of flow, which is a psychological concept originally coined by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Finding those specific moments where you are both highly engaged and highly energized provides the critical breadcrumbs for your life design. You aren't guessing what you might like to do based on job titles. You are letting your actual neurological responses dictate your direction.
And once you have gathered those breadcrumbs, you can start building what I think is the most exciting exercise in the book, the Odyssey Plan.
Oh, the Odyssey Plan is fantastic.
It forces you to create 3 entirely different 5-year plans for your life.
And the psychological constraints of how you build those 3 plans are what make the exercise so effective.
Right, so plan 1 is essentially optimizing your current path. It's the thing you are already doing or already planning to do, just executed well.
Simple enough.
But then plan 2 requires you to imagine that plan 1 suddenly vanishes. Let's say your entire industry is automated by AI tomorrow and you literally cannot do plan 1. What do you do?
That's where it gets hard.
And plan 3 removes all external friction. What would you pursue if money and image were completely irrelevant? If you had guaranteed income and nobody would ever judge you, what would that 5-year plan look like?
See, if you only make a plan B, it psychologically feels like a concession price. It feels like a failure. But by forcing yourself to vividly imagine 3 distinct, robust, and viable futures, you prove to your own brain that multiple great lives exist for you.
Yeah.
It instantly relieves the suffocating pressure of having to find the one single perfect path, because you clearly see 3 on the paper in front of you.
But staring at 3 plans on a piece of paper doesn't magically make them reality. How do you actually test if you'd enjoy being, say, a marine biologist or an urban planner without quitting your job and going back to school for 4 years?
Right.
That brings us to the strategy of radical collaboration and prototyping conversations.
which completely upends the traditional soul-crushing method of job seeking. Sending hundreds of resumes into the digital abyss is a low-yield process that strips you of agency. Burnett and Evans advocate for conducting life design interviews.
It's networking, but the intention is entirely different. You aren't asking for a job.
No, you are asking for someone's narrative. If your plan 2 involves transitioning into urban planning, you find someone currently doing that work, and you ask for 20 minutes of their time. You ask them what a Tuesday actually looks like.
Right.
You ask what they love, and crucially, what they absolutely hate about their job. This radical collaboration provides you with the reality of the prototype. You might discover that the day-to-day reality of a job involves endless bureaucratic paperwork that would drain your energy, saving you years of misplaced effort.
The sources provide some incredible real-world examples of people utilizing these exact tools to escape career paralysis. There is the story of a highly successful lawyer who was completely burned out and miserable. Under the old paradigm, their options were either to grit their teeth and suffer until retirement, or impulsively quit law entirely and jump blind into a new field.
Which we know is a terrible idea.
Right.
So instead, they used the design thinking framework. They started conducting life design interviews and realized that the specific parts of law they actually enjoyed: advocacy, structuring arguments, policy translated beautifully into education administration.
That's such a pivot, but it makes sense.
It does. They didn't just guess, they prototyped by volunteering and having conversations in the education sector. They transitioned into a highly rewarding career without blowing up their life.
There is also the example of the business executive who felt entirely unfulfilled despite having all the outward markers of success.
So that's a classic one.
By diligently keeping a good time journal, they realized the only time their energy gauge was truly full was when they were mentoring junior employees and tackling community issues. They followed the data of their own energy levels, which led them to prototype a transition into social entrepreneurship. They de-risked the entire career change.
These strategies shift you away from a state of anxious analysis paralysis and move you into a state of curious action. It grants you permission to test drive a lifestyle before you buy it.
So what does this all mean? Let's pull all of this together and recap the major paradigm shifts because the implications here are profound. First, your life is not a final product that you are failing to assemble perfectly. It is a series of prototypes.
Yes.
Second, failure is not an indictment of your worth. It is simply the data required to inform your next iteration. And third, the perfect plan is a myth. There is incredible freedom in realizing you don't have to figure out your ultimate destiny today.
The behavioral shift this material triggers is vital. It equips anyone, whether you are a college student or a mid-career professional, feeling trapped by the sunk cost fallacy of your current degree, with a concrete methodology to unstuck themselves. You move from passively reacting to your circumstances to actively designing your reality.
It really is a completely different way to move through the world, but it also makes me wonder about the broader implications of adopting this mindset, especially when we look at systems outside of just our own personal careers.
Yeah, and this raises an important question for you to mull over. If you finally stop searching for your single predetermined destiny, how much more freedom do you have to just enjoy the unpredictable life you are prototyping right now? Because if we accept that human lives are inherently nonlinear and that success relies on prototyping and failure immunity, what does that mean for how we raise the next generation?
That's a great point.
Our current educational systems demand that 18-year-olds pick a major and lock themselves into a single predetermined path before they have any real-world data. Are we systematically setting young people up for a midlife crisis by teaching them to follow a GPS map in a world that requires a compass and a beta testing mindset?
That is a massive question, and it really highlights how radical this shift in thinking needs to be. We have to stop punishing people and punishing ourselves for recalculating the route. The design process itself is where the joy and the discovery actually live. So the next time you feel like you took a wrong turn, remember, your life isn't a rigid map, it's an open canvas. You aren't off-route, you're just gathering vital data for your next great prototype. Thank you for joining this Better Every Page on YouTube. Keep designing, keep experimenting, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.